All right, so the URL is apcentral.collegeboard.com. If you just like went to Google or Safari, whatever, and started typing in AP Classroom or AP Central, it will pop up. Again, if you haven't created an account, you need to create an account. If you have created an account, then you just need to add this course into your account. So here, let me see if I can get your join code. So for period A, you're going to type that top one, LZWAEY, and then obviously period C is the other one. I need everybody to do it now. And then literally I have an assignment worth 100 points that all you have to do is screenshot it. You screenshot that your class is there. I need to see your name at the top. It should say hi, whatever, welcome, whatever. And then it should be that purple course tile. AP Classroom outside of like supplemental stuff is a huge resource. It is obviously questions written by the same people that write your AP test. So almost every lesson I will assign it. Sometimes there's 2 questions. The most I think is usually like 6 questions, but they are AP style questions to help you start to take the content that we're using in class and see the way that they will spin on it. Some of them are easy and straightforward and some of them are difficult, and it's okay. If they're super difficult, we'll go over them. I don't expect you to get them right all the time, but I do expect you to attempt it every time.
Is this AP exam online?
Yeah, so your AP exam, the multiple choice part is online, and the free response questions you will get online, but you will answer in the booklet.
Okay.
Yep, which is different from last year. Yeah. So they haven't even put out a practice test that way. Like on Blue Book, there's no practice test yet, but once there's practice tests on Blue Book, we will do those so that you can kind of experience that, okay? All right, so once you get into the class, let me see as a student. What you should see is, where's my student view? If you don't already have an account, you have to make an account. Yep. So what you should see when you get in there is at the top, you'll actually see a welcome video, and then you'll see any things that I assign. So they are called quizzes because that's what AP Classroom calls them. But for me, most days are there simply homework, okay? And they will be supplemental to what you get from me. So I will give you a PDF with some practice questions, and then you'll come into AP Classroom to get the other questions. Also in here is your course guide with literally all the topics that are going to be covered. I am going to cover every single topic with you that are in Unit 1, 2, and 3 because that's what's on your AP exam. Unit 4 is supplementary. We will cover some of Unit 4 because you need it for calc, but it is not on your AP exam, okay? So we might jump around a little bit, but for the most part, I will go in the order of these units beginning next Wednesday. And then for each of these, so I will never assign that you have to watch a daily video, but if you want to go in and watch a daily video, they certainly help. Sometimes they're good to help you with the actual AP questions that are on the homework. And then at the end of the year, like when we start to get into that March, April time, there's going to be lots of practice tests and stuff like this. The best part about AP Classroom is it's tracking how you're doing. And that's why I say you need to try these questions every single time as though it's the best you can try it. Don't just tap an answer and move on, okay? Because it's keeping your analytics, and it will tell you need to cover, like, where are you struggling? Which topics are you struggling? And then you can come back into those topics and you can review those specific topics. So the first thing I want you to do is click on the quiz on the top. You're gonna get this update AP Classroom. You can click I understand, and you can click don't show me again, and click continue. And then you're gonna get, there's lag. And then you're gonna get your actual AP Classroom questions. Wait for it. So in this practice, and I gave you questions that are, that would help you in 1-4. So these questions you should be able to do, okay? These are AP style questions based on translations and dilations. So what I would suggest you do from here every day is go to the more Oh, mine doesn't look like this. Does yours say, let me see yours. Mine says print preview. Go to more. Does yours say print preview? No. Okay. So you can screenshot these questions or you can split your screen and you can work on them. I don't care. Some of them are going to require work and some of them are not. If you can do this question without any work, but you can give the answer, that's fine. I know which ones require work and which ones don't. Okay. So if you've already done your, which will happen, like this is a fresh question, like this is just these two. But let's say we fast forward to Wednesday, you're going to get a PDF from Canvas. And then you're going to add to it the work for your AP Classroom. And then once you get your score, you will screenshot your score for AP Classroom and you will add it. I need to see your name and I need to see your score, okay? It literally will just tell me where you're at. And it's like green, you're doing good. Yellow, it's a little rough. Red is bad. If we can get in the green, fantastic. If there's one section in which the questions are really hard because that happens and we're not in the green, it's okay. Again, you don't need it to validate who you are as a human being. It is practice for that reason. We will take it much more seriously when we get through all that content. But if you can stay on top of it a little bit at a time, then you're going to be much more comfortable with these style questions at the end. Okay, I think, because this interface looks totally different, these questions look different than they did last year, I think this is what Blue Book's going to look like. So I think it's going to give you like a mark for review, so you can do a little bookmark so that when you get to the end, if you want to go back and like, I'm not sure about that question, you can go back to it. And then you'll literally just tap on your answer and you'll go to next, okay? And then on the bottom, if there's a bunch of questions, you can lift them up and you can go through them. I can tap on one, I can find the ones that are unanswered, and I can find the ones that are bookmarked for review. So I'm pretty sure they redesigned the AP Classroom quizzes to look just like what it's going to look like in Blue Book, okay? So again, the idea is to get comfortable with this. So 2 assignments on AP Classroom. One is take a little screenshot of that you're enrolled in the class. 2 is answer these 2 questions and then submit it, okay? And then screenshot your score. Questions? Okay. Resources, okay? At the top is the thing that I said open now. It's a note. I give it to you as a note file because I wrote it in pink and maybe you don't like pink. Or you don't like my handwriting and you can move it around, okay? So I'm giving it as a note. Send it to Notability. And then you can edit it instead of giving you a PDF. We're going to work on that right now. We're going to talk about all the concepts, okay? Then for homework, tonight you want to start the actual test review, which is the problems, okay? Notice I put in here skip section 1.5. We didn't get to 1.5. It's not on your test. Don't do it. Then there are the solutions for that one. And then on the extra review, which you can do, I would say save that till Monday, especially if you don't have a lot of plans on Monday, so that it's nice and fresh in your mind, okay? If you have plans Monday, obviously don't, but if you can save it to Monday, save it to Monday. Please, please, please pay attention to these. It says complete part D for questions 97 to 103. That's where it says what we did at the end of the examples yesterday to write the function in terms of f of x. It's crossed through in the instructions, but it's going to be on your test, so make sure that you do it, okay? And then the solutions for the extra one are there too. And then underneath this, I cut it off, but underneath this is difference quotient practice. So if you want to practice your difference quotient, that's some extra practice on all that stuff.
Will there be cubed on the test?
No, the most you're gonna get quadratic. Okay. Yep. And I would say like that is one of the things that can be like a time saver or a time killer. If you know what you're doing on difference quotient, you've done it so many times that you know what x plus h squared is, and you can do all the things fast, that question could take you a minute. If you're struggling through because you haven't done it a whole bunch and you spend 5 minutes on that question, you've really messed yourself up for the rest of it. Yeah. Same thing with the calculator. If you're really comfortable with your calculator, that calculator part's going to be easy. If you're not comfortable with your calculator, you're going to thumb through, mess it up, have to redo it, and then you're going to spend way too much time on that question than it should be.
Are we gonna do the fraction graph?
A reciprocal graph? Sure. You have to be ready for all the graphs. Yeah. All right, so if you've opened up that note, the topic. So this is all topic based on what you have to do. And then in that review assignment is going to be a PDF. There's actually 2 of them, a review and then an extra review for you to work on with the actual problems. So your test is going to go from C.1 to 1.4, which is what we finished yesterday. It is going to, I think there's actually only like 9 numbered questions or maybe 8 even, but that's because they have multiple parts within them. So you're going to start with the calculator, just like you did on your quiz, okay? There's going to be one big fat problem like we did with 1.3 where you have to graph it and then you have to answer. domain range, increasing, decreasing, even, odd, zeros, value, all that stuff based on your graphed function. And then there is a word problem in there from the linear stuff that I'll give you the calculator for. So one big problem, which is your 1.3 graphing question. And then there is a word problem from section 1.1, okay? I'm not going to tell you exactly what it is, but that is where, like, what the topic will cover. Then you will put your calculators away just like you did in the quiz, and you will switch to your non-calculator portion, which is the big chunk of it, and that will cover the rest of it. If you need to go back to the calculator part, you can, which means, like, if you are stuck on a question, you need to stop and move on. You can't waste time on the calculator part, not get to the questions on the non-calculator part. So you may have to move on and then just go back to it if you're done, okay? If you do want to go back to the calculator part, then you give me the non-calculator part, and that is mine to keep. You don't get it back. So you can flip-flop, but you can't flip-flop-flip. All right, so in C.1, we talked about the distance and the midpoint formulas, distance being the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. And midpoint being x1 plus x2 over 2 and y1 plus y2 over 2. And then we applied those in the circles, we applied those in the classifying triangles, that kind of stuff. C2 was where we started graphing function, or not functions, just graphs. And these we did with our intercepts. So your x-intercept, you plug 0 in for y. And we write these in coordinate point form. And the y-intercept, we plug 0 in for x. And again, we write this in coordinate point form. We also tested for symmetry in this section. For x-axis symmetry, we changed the y to negative y. For y-axis, we changed the x to negative x. And for origin, we do both. Y to negative y and x to negative x. And for all of these, we're seeing it if it goes back to the original or all signs change. Every single term would have to change. If it happens, then it passes that specific type of symmetry. You could have all three. You could only have origin. You can have x in origin, y in origin. If you have x and y, you automatically have origin. It's the only thing that's guaranteed. Yeah. Yeah, I have to give one. I got a new kid last week, so I'm giving one makeup today after school, and then these will go back tomorrow. Yeah. Your quizzes was the question. I don't know if you heard that. Okay, find the equation of a circle. There was two types of questions there. Either I gave you the center and a point on the circle, and so you can plug in for HK and XY, or I gave you the endpoints of the diameter. You can either find the midpoint find the center using the midpoint and then pick the center and a point. Or you could find the distance, cut it in half, or you could find the distance from the center to one of those points. Up to you. I suggest the first one. But the standard form is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. Silly mistakes made on the quiz is like leaving off the squareds, or one person, even though I said don't do it, right? I said don't use the endpoints of the diameter and then find the distance and then cut it in half, because every year somebody makes a mistake on that. And it happened. I don't know if it was in this class or not, but it happened. So avoid that. My recommendation is find the center by using the midpoint and then plug in the center and one point. And it doesn't matter which point. Questions on anything C1 or C2 related? So that was what was on your quiz. Okay, then came 1-1, which was all the slopes and the equations of the lines and that kind of stuff. So 3 types of equations. Slope intercept was y equals mx plus b. Standard is ax plus by equals c, all whole numbers. X must be positive. And your shortcut for that one for slope is negative a over b. So if you're looking for slope and it gives it to you in standard form, you don't have to put it into slope intercept form. You can do negative a over b. Yeah.
What did you write under all numbers?
It says all whole numbers and then x has to be positive. And then point slope y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So you could get an equation and it could ask you to graph. You could get an equation and it could ask you for the slope and the y-intercept. Or you could get that information and then have to find the equation of the line. What's true about lines that are parallel? What's true about their slopes? Same slope. And what's true about ones that are perpendicular? Good. Opposite. Reciprocal. So find the equation of lines. Again, it could give you any kind of information. It could give you the actual slope and the y-intercept, or it could give you 2 points, or it could give you a point and it could say it's parallel or perpendicular to an equation, that kind of stuff. I mentioned it at the beginning, but there was linear word problems in here on your web assign. You're going to get a linear word problem from this section. All right, 1.2 and 1.3 I kind of put together because some of the function stuff overlapped. So 1, 2, we talked about what a function was. We figured out if it was a function based on points or an equation, and then in 1, 3 we did the graph. So if it's a point, the x cannot repeat with a different y. From an equation, the y cannot be raised to an even power or in absolute value. So those things make them not functions. And then from a graph, we use the vertical line test. Yep.
So for the two, the absolute value and the y to an even power, that cannot be.
This makes them not a function. So if the x is raised to an even power, fine. If the x is an absolute value, fine. The problem is the y.
Does that say y plus?
It's like y raised to an even power. The piecewise functions were in 1 and 1, 2, and also 1, 3. Again, I kind of blended them together. You're going to have to be able to evaluate something based on a piecewise function. So if I gave you the picture of a piecewise function, could you find domain, range, increasing, decreasing, and then of a specific value? And then also graph by hand a piecewise function. So there's practice of both of those things on your review. In 1, 2, we did domain from an equation. So we're looking, right, it's all real numbers. So it is negative infinity to positive infinity unless there's a variable in the denominator. There's a variable under a square root or the combination of the two. If it's in the denominator, we set the denominator not equal to 0. If it's under the root, we set it greater than or equal to 0. And if it's in the bottom of the fraction and under the root, we say it's greater than 0. And then the difference quotient was also in this section. X plus h. f of x plus h, sorry, minus f of x all over h.
Wait, what happens if
About the difference quotient. If you've done it a bunch of times, you could do that sucker in less than a minute. Like if you get down your time, that is where you could save some serious time. If you are shaky on it because you haven't practiced it a bunch and it takes you a long time, now you're eating up the time that you need for the other questions. You could smoothly go through this test with no time problem. Or if you struggle, it's going to kill you, okay? So you need to be careful. Same thing with like every test. If you find that something is taking you too long, stop, move on, and go back to it. Do not allow it to rattle you. If the difference quotient is the first non-calculator question you get and you get hung up on something, leave the work. Don't erase it, because at least I can give you partial credit. Leave the work, move on, and go back to it. Do not allow it to rattle you. But at this point, a difference quotient question should not be difficult if you know what you're doing. It's just a matter of going through the steps. Memorizing your x plus h squared is going to help you. Going through the steps in a quick way because you've done it a bunch of times is going to help you. There are extra practice questions all the way on the bottom of your review assignment that are just difference quotient. So if you know you want to work on those this weekend, spend some time working on those.
And the difference question, it won't be with cube.
It won't be cubed. Nope.
just squared?
Just squared.
Wait, why isn't it non-calculator?
Huh? Yeah, but I said, just for time purposes, I don't need you to spend 10 minutes on one question. You'll never make it. Yeah. Okay, then came all the stuff from a graph. This was in 1-3. So you're going to get this, and I want to stress, with and without a calculator. If I give you the graph, you should be able to answer domain, range, increasing, decreasing, zeros, max, min, even, odd, and the value of x, or the value of y given a specific x, like if it said f of whatever. Or if it said, find the value of y if x equals something. You should be able to find that without a calculator. And then you should also be able to find it from a graph you have to graph on your calculator. And then in 1-4, it was all the parent functions and our shifts. So our x squared is our parabola. Parabola, oh man. Parabola. Absolute value is your V. Cubic goes up, right, down, left. Square root is just the little arc to the right. Cube root is the arc to the right, but then it reflects over to the left. And our reciprocal function is top right corner, bottom left corner. And then came all the shifts. So the plus and the minus on the front is what? That would cause reflection over which axis? Good. Reflection over x axis. So if it's positive, obviously not. But if it's negative, it's a reflection over the x-axis. The a, or the number that's being multiplied on the front, causes what? Good. Vertical. Well, we're going to call it a vertical dilation because if it's bigger, dilation. If it's greater than 1, then it's a stretch. If it's in between 0 and 1, I need my signs to go the other way. If it's in between 0 and 1, then it's a compression. By a factor of a, whatever that value is. So even if it's negative 10, we treat the negative as though it's the reflection. We treat the 10 as though it's bigger than 1. That would be a vertical stretch by a factor of 10. That affects your y values. So instead of going right 1 and up 1, we're going to go right 1 and up 10. We multiply by that factor. Then came the value inside. So if I'm multiplying by something inside here, actually, there needs to be a positive negative here, sorry. There needs to be a positive or negative on that C. The positive or negative on the C is a reflection over the y-axis. Then the C is your horizontal dilation. If C is bigger than 1, then it is a horizontal compression. If C is in between 0 and 1, then it is a horizontal stretch. And it's by a factor of 1 over C, so the reciprocal. If we add and subtract inside the parentheses, what's happening? Yep, horizontal shift. So if it's positive, it goes which way? Shifts left, and negative shifts right. And then our last, separated by a plus or minus, is our vertical shift. Positive goes up, negative goes down. And then obviously I can give you equations, give you the breakdown, give me the parent function, give me the transformations, give me the graph, write it in terms of f of x. And then you also could get a graph and you have to identify for me the equation of it. So just like that homework did, it could go in both directions. So your homework tonight is to go home and do as much of that review as you can. There's a regular review and then there's an extra review, okay? I don't make it graded because I give you all the answers because I want you to be able to check while you're going. But you need to make sure you're doing it. Tomorrow, your job would be to come into class and say, Miss Chrisweiser, I started it and I got to this question and I don't know how to do it, because then I can help you. If you wait until Tuesday to do that, I can't help you. So your job tonight, again, maybe don't do every problem if you've got other stuff, if you have another test going on, whatever it is, but devote some time to it tonight. Go through a little bit of it and see where it is that you might need help. And then tomorrow I'll answer questions on the PDF review. I'll actually answer the questions on that 1-3 homework, whatever it is that you have questions on. Tomorrow is that day. And if we have time, I'll do like an interactive review of some sort. But that's your goal, is to at least start your review today so you can ask questions tomorrow. And then I would save the extra review for the weekend. Like, especially because it's a long weekend. If you don't have a lot of going on Monday, then I would save the extra review for Monday so it's nice and fresh in your mind on Tuesday. I also posted the answers to that. But pay attention to the end because both the reviews have more sections than are on your test. Like the regular review goes to section 5. I tell you where to stop. And then the extra review even goes to section 6. But next to it, I told you where to stop. If it's something you haven't seen yet, it's not on your test. So if you looked at the initial solutions, I think I went the domain. I had to change, okay? So make sure you have this file. So here's a perfect example of a piecewise function, right? So in a piecewise function, you could have to graph it. You could have to find the domain and range, the intervals, all the same things. So be careful with your domain and range on these. I think this is the trickiest part, right? Domain on this piecewise function, if I look as far as it goes left, that arrow is going left, which means it starts at negative infinity. But then it stops here where x is -1, and it's an open dot. And then there's a break. So that domain, the first one goes from negative infinity to -1 with a parentheses on the -1. Then there's a break in my x values from -1 to 0. So I stop and restart my domain. It starts where x is 0. It's a solid dot, so it gets a bracket. And then it goes to this point here, which is x is 2, and it's an open dot, so it gets a parentheses. And then your range, if you're going from bottom to top, the lowest y was -4. It's a bracket. That should be a negative. I think I erased it. -4. Okay. And it goes up to 0, but it doesn't include 0 because it's an open dot. And then it stops. And there's nothing until you hit 3 again, but it's an open dot, so it's a parentheses. And then it goes to positive infinity. So you will get piecewise functions, and you're going to have to evaluate them. If you did not